So welcome to Mobility and Massage Self-Care Saturday. Thank you for coming. Like I said, YogaFit does these roughly monthly, something like that. And we like to have you come out, learn more about YogaFit, learn more about us, get a little free class, hopefully do something good for yourself. The idea for this one today is that we are moving into the Vata season, or maybe depending on where you live, you're already in the Vata season. So the body might feel, cold and tense. Maybe we need to drink a little bit of extra water or hydrate. Sometimes people recommend licorice tea for this sort of thing, soup. We want to keep our muscles hydrated when we are doing mobility and massage work. And at this time of year especially, it helps to balance our Vata. Here is my email if you have any questions, if you want these slides. I made this on Canva. It's a pretty easy website to work with. Here's my name, Gwendolyn Elliott, and I'm Zen with Gwen everywhere, pretty much, zenwithgwen@outlook.com. If you have questions, please do not hesitate. If you're like, I don't know, should I take Ayurveda 1 or Balancing Moods? Feel free to email me. Not that many people take me up on this offer, so I promise you won't be wasting all my time. I love hearing from you. I'm happy when you reach out and we can talk about all that good stuff. If you are interested on Instagram, I've been posting Ayurvedic recipes and, little 2-minute yoga practices and stuff like that. And I'm always sharing YogaFit stories and stuff on my stories as well, so you know when the discounts and everything else are coming up. Okay, what are we doing today? Let's find out. Possible tools we can be using. So the easy sort of starter pack is 1 tennis ball. Even better, 2 tennis balls in an old sock. They stay together and they roll really nicely. Of course, we have foam rollers at most gyms. They're making like the small ones now, which is really nice, more rolling pin sized. Or you can get a rolling pin. Wooden rolling pins have a little bit more give in them. They're less painful. Really firm items are not so great. So sometimes people will use like a water bottle if they have nothing else, but it can be quite painful and we want to avoid pain, right? Like, so if I were giving you a massage and the whole time I had to say like, relax, you're tensing your shoulders, we know you're not getting a good massage benefit. We want the muscle to melt. We want to be buttery soft as we are going through this. One other thing that you can do, if you have a really firm item, or maybe you're really sore and tight, your normal item feels really painful. If you lie down on like a physio bed or your regular bed, it sinks in a bit more and can take out some of that sort of pokiness. Tennis balls are a good mid-sized tool, but we want the size of the tool to match the size of the muscle. So we're not going to be rolling out our quads today. Something like a tennis ball on a big muscle like our quads feels super pokey, right? The same as, I don't know who goes for massage here, but when they're poking you with their thumbs, it's often not as nice as when they use something like their elbow that spreads out the weight and the tension. Large muscle, large tool, small muscle, small tool. I will show you after I stop the share the items that I have in case you are interested. Really small balls you can use for face and hands. A word of caution, we want to avoid pain, and one of my favorite definitions of pain is sensation that makes you want to pull away. So if you're like, ooh, that kind of hurts, I like it. That's fine. That's the whole point of a massage. But if you notice that you are clenching your jaw and sweating, and that's not what we're going for. So any sort of sensation to pull away or tighten up, sort of that fight or flight response in the body, we're avoiding that. We're also avoiding bones and joints. You're not going to get a lot of value out of rolling your elbow or your kneecap or the bones of the spine. We want to go for the muscle around the joint. So if you have, like, a lot of people are like, okay, but my knee hurts, massage the muscles around the knee, the calves, the quads, the hamstrings. Something else in there is probably going to be more beneficial. We don't get a lot of benefit from putting our body weight on a tool on our joint. And then finally, this one is quite common and may be a new sensation for you. Any kind of nerve pain. So our nerves are quite small. And if you roll over them, you might feel some sort of sensation that people describe as like an electric shock, numbness, pins and needles. And it's like a weird kind of numbness or radiating pain. Like I'll be rolling over my shoulder, but suddenly my fingers go numb, or I get like a pain that shoots down the arm. Fortunately, because our nerves are so skinny, if we just move the tool over a little bit, then we're no longer on that nerve, but we're still in the same muscle. So really, again, avoiding pain or like weird sensation. What is the right sensation? So sometimes it's described as delicious pain. Depending on the muscle that you're working on, it might just feel really good. And that's, I guess, a good day, or we're just lucky. And then sometimes it's like, okay, it hurts, but I can tell I need it. I know when I'm done, I will feel the release and the benefit. So discomfort, the same as in our exercise classes, is fine, right? I know when I'm doing a plank, there's discomfort, but not pain. So the same way that as we do a regular yoga practice, we learn to find that space of discomfort versus pain. And when we get good at our massage practice, we learn like, oh yeah, this is the discomfort that I'll feel better when the technique is over versus this is the discomfort that is just pain. This is not good. And often the solution for that is putting less body weight on the tool, but you can still work in the same area. And I'll show us how to do that. I'll give us suggestions for that. We're going to use our body weight against the mat, which think about how much you weigh and how much weight you're putting on that part of your body. A wall class is a really nice place for this. Or if we have personal training clients in the gym that we want to use the like the squat rack, you can put the tennis ball between like your chest and the squat rack. It's easier to work with than just awkwardly rolling against a wall. But then our backs against the wall are actually really nice, or the arms, the back of the arms. But for today, we're going to use the floor because it's a mat class. I think I sort of talked about this already. Dynamic tension, we want to use as little as possible to execute the technique without straining. So if you are rolling over, we're going to start with our glutes, and you're like, your face is all messed up and your shoulders are hunched up, or you're really squeezing your glutes. That's too much. We're going to figure out a different way to work the same technique that there is no straining. So enough dynamic tension to execute without any unwanted tension or pain coming in. And that's it. That's it. We're going to work. We're going to avoid pain. You might want to grab a quick drink if you haven't done that already. And let me just quickly show us our possible tools before we get going. So I have, like I said, we're going to rely on these today. Just honestly, my uncle plays tennis. He went to the tennis court, said, who has old tennis balls, brought me a giant bag. I will never need to buy tennis balls in my life. If you think that's gross, you can wipe them down with some sort of sanitizer or go get fresh ones from the store. There are these lovely tools that are joined. This one is fantastic. Rad Roller makes a good one, especially for bigger bodies with a bigger dip in the center. They have a course you can do that I've done with them. They're great. And if we check the YogaFit Facebook group, there used to be a code there, a discount code, so maybe there still is. A dowel is good, or I have essentially a dowel with a little layer of foam. It's a mini foam roller. Mini foam rollers are amazing. You can throw them in your gym bag or your purse, bring them with you to work. Very easy to commute around. But then again, if we're thinking about rolling out a large muscle, maybe not quite as effective on something like our quads. And then a word of warning, if you just go to the store and grab some random balls or fitness balls, anything like this might burst if you put your body weight on it. So just a word of warning. Might be designed for human body weight, maybe not, but be careful. And then yeah, if you want to run out to the dollar store, they have all sorts of tiny balls you can use for face or hands. If you're really brave, you can use a golf ball, but you'll figure out whatever works for you. Okay, that was me speed talking to fit it all in. I'm going to get going. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Other than that, we're going to start lying down on our mats today, and make sure that your tennis ball is somewhere within arm's reach so you can grab it. So a great way to start a practice like this is the same way we often start any kind of practice. Let's scan the body head to toe. Checking in, getting rid of any final fidgets. I know I just sort of made you drink from the fire hose, threw a bunch of information at you, so might feel nice to turn the head side to side, let our minds empty out and say, okay, whatever I learned, I can come back to it. I don't need it right now, so we can use this time to focus in on ourselves. I will remind us of those little pointers as we go. Maybe imagining our brains as an Etch-a-Sketch, and a little movement of the head wipes it clean. Might feel nice to take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth a couple times. And because I am such a fast talker, sometimes it's nice to do a slow breath in and a long breath out to reset the pace in our bodies. And at this time of year, or any time of year really, it can be difficult to carve out time for ourselves. So sometimes a nice intention or affirmation to start is, I am exactly where I need to be. And for today, we'll be working on the upper back and neck. Maybe putting a little awareness there, seeing if you've had a long week at your desk or been doing lots of trap shrugs. We'll be working on our hips and glutes. We can put our awareness in there. Notice how that's working today. And bringing our awareness down to our feet, noticing how the feet are feeling. And then I'll invite each of us to do a little freedom of movement. However you feel you're being called to move, maybe a big sigh, a big stretch, knees to chest, something like that. Noticing whatever impulse your body has, and feel free to go with that. And then we'll all start together. All right, when you're ready, let's start with our tennis balls. In case anyone has just one, I will start with just one and show us how to add in the second one. Super simple. We're going to take the tennis ball underneath one glute, and I'll lead us through the different techniques that we can use. So the first one is to just press and hold, or what I like to call weight and weight. So W-E-I-G-H-T, our body weight, and W-A-I-T, we're going to pause, wait and wait. We let our body weight do the work while we sit here and wait. That is usually the best technique to build some body awareness, to sense like, is there any tension here? What's going on? Or if the muscle is really tight or tender. If we feel okay, then we can start a slow roll. So we're going to slide our hips to the side, kind of like our hips are in a hammock, and then back the other way. So again, take into consideration, everybody's body is different. So if you have a larger pelvis, more muscle tissue, more adipose tissue, then we're going to have more body weight on this tiny tool, right? So then, think about it. If you are 5 feet tall versus 6 feet tall, well, we're going to need to use a different tool because the size of our tool matches the size of the area we're working on. So if you are 5 feet tall like me, a tennis ball is more than big enough. we may need to add in a larger tool. So we can take the second tennis ball and put them both together. So if we had the yoga tune-up balls, or 2 tennis balls in a sock, or something, you know, more figure 8 shaped, then that's what we can use here. And the same technique of sliding side to side, putting our hips in a hammock. Let's scan the body head to toe, noticing if we're holding on to any unwanted or unnecessary tension. So, hey, wait a second, I don't want to be squeezing my eyebrows together. Okay, I'm gonna release that. We might like to, again, do a full inhale, a long exhale. And then we really have some freedom of movement once we get used to the technique. So when I'm teaching, I look around the room and, like I'm sure all of us do at home for the yoga teachers in the group, you sort of look and gauge, okay, looks like my students need some extra time here, or looks like they're sick of this. So you can do the same. If it looks like people are really getting into it, fine. If we see confused faces, maybe we need to give some more instruction. So we could still keep doing this hips in a hammock thing, or we can slide up and down. So like I said, it does take some dynamic tension, right? We are doing a little bit of work, but as little as possible, hopefully. The other thing we can do is let the knees knock over to the side, and we may like a windshield wipe sort of movement, putting the pressure on, releasing the pressure off, or even just to rest. So once we get into the smaller muscles in the side of the hip, sometimes it can have a real bite to it, and it may be nice to just let our body weight sink into one or both balls. We hang out. And this can be a great technique, not just for muscles that have been overworked, but for sleepy muscles. So a lot of us don't have a good glute med practice, this muscle in the side of the hip that we're resting on. And one way that we can warm up a muscle is actually to roll it out. So if you're like, okay, I'm going to do a glute workout, I haven't worked glutes in days, weeks, months, years, rolling it out is a great warm up to get into that area. Okay, unfortunately, we only have one more technique and then we've got to move on to the other side. The last one is to do a figure 4 with the legs. Oh, again, to add a little bit more sensation, a little bit more bite. If that feels like too much, you just did, I don't know, a power spin class, then again, we can put the foot down or the leg down, or we can take some of the work out of it. So we have a lot of freedom. And I will recap these on the second side. Okay. Hopefully we feel we got some good work done. As it loosens up, maybe we're going a little bit faster, but slower is generally better for our tissues. Let's go to the other side. So I'll run us through all those different techniques, and now we know a little bit more. We can pick up on the one that feels the best for you. And I'm going to flip. You can stay exactly where you are so you can see maybe a little bit better. Our one tennis ball under the opposite glute. We wait, body weight, and pause. Wait, wait, and wait. This side might be totally different. Depending on our balances or imbalances, we might be like, oh God, the first side was fine, and this side is really painful. So remembering to breathe, that long exhale, right? If we know about our parasympathetic nervous system, it taps us into that. But generally, a long exhale or a sigh helps us to release tension. We may like to straighten the leg, bend the leg, windshield wipe, or just hold and pause. Sometimes if it's really tense, we hold and pause, maybe 3 breaths, lift and move it to a new spot, and then again, maybe 3 breaths. So somebody asked before we started, can you incorporate this into a chair yoga class? That's probably how we're doing it in a chair yoga class. You sit on the tool, 3 rounds of breath, lift up, reposition, 3 rounds of breath. And really play with it, see what works best. You might want to hold it longer. So as long as we're avoiding, what did I say at the beginning? Sharp pain, nerve pain. If we're avoiding rolling directly on our joints, we're probably in good shape. So we can take both tools under that glute if we like. Hips in a hammock, sway side to side. Maybe slice up and down. And I don't know if any of us are massage therapists or have more of an anatomy background. You can roll, so if we're thinking we have our muscle fibers, you can roll across them or up and down them. Different technique, different sensation. We can play with it, see what works best for each of us. Sometimes people prefer a more circular movement. That's fine too. We have our option again to windshield wipe. And come more onto the outside of the hip. Release off. More onto the outside of the hip. And then release. So if we're using our critical thinking, why would I want to hold versus move? Well, maybe I'm leading a more mobility focused class, so we're going to keep moving. Or my students are uncomfortable with stillness, so we're going to keep moving. Or maybe I'm working with a client whose hips are super tight from lots of spinning or heavy weightlifting. Then that's probably the person that would get more benefit from holding still. But I'm still saying probably, right? There are no hard and fast rules. And then let our bodies be our guide, right? Our favorite Yoga Fit saying, letting our bodies be our guide. So on one side, we might need to work more towards the center of the body. On the other side, working more laterally towards the outside of the hip, and that's totally fine. So if you were going to do an intense glute workout, this would be a good warm-up. If you did an intense glute workout yesterday or the day before, this will be a great recovery. So you notice it's been quite a while to just work on one muscle group, so it's kind of easy actually to fill up time with this. So let's start to finish off on this side. The only technique I haven't mentioned yet was to move this leg, I think, into figure 4. And as I'm talking with my hands, this is a good reminder to me to say, let's relax our hands. I don't know if anybody knows the fist exercise, but you clench your fists and try to take a relaxed breath. It's really tough. So a great technique for this is to simply relax the hands. And that sends the message to the rest of the body to relax as well. And hopefully we're getting a bit more comfortable with this. We realize that we can play with it, experiment with it. We see where we're using more muscular work, and then we can see where we're using more gravity to get this done. All right. Ooh, let's put these off to the side. We'll use them again in a moment. And this kind of work actually combines quite well with stretching, yin. It can be sort of a warm-up for yin, which makes yin, yes, less of a traditional yin. But at this point, we might feel like we want to do a figure 4 on one side and then the other. And yogi's choice, depending on how we worked our hips, we may actually prefer single knee to chest to release what we just did. So we'll do either single knee to chest or figure 4, or maybe one of each. And then let's all draw knees to chest. We can let our feet fall, and we'll do a few bridge flows to warm up hips and shoulders and to get our body awareness back into our glutes. So if we're familiar with Yoga Fit, usually we inhale on a lift to feel warmed up and lifted. Exhale as we lower to use our core muscles to resist gravity, and arms moving in opposition from our hips. Hips down, arms up. Hips up, arms down. Matching breath to movement. And this matching breath to movement is another thing that's really soothing for our parasympathetic nervous system, or you may know it as rest and digest. So yes, we often want to work really hard in a yoga class, but then our muscles they're on, right? They're tense, they're working, they're in their type A mode, and we want to get into more of a releasing mode here. Otherwise, we're just rolling over a tight muscle, we're not getting a great massage. Let's bring it into knees to chest. We'll do a flowing waterfall to warm up the back of the legs. So yes, a little bit of core. Again, working on this theme, we may like fingertips to our core muscles. I like to have my thumbs on my ribs to remind me, oh yeah, my ribs are expanding with my inhale, perfect. And then fingertips on abs, so I know, oh yeah, that's right, my core muscles are drawn in. And we may like to point and flex. Another great time of year to practice self-compassion. If we're not feeling quite so limber in the back of our legs, saying, you know what? That's actually pretty normal. It's okay to be tight in the back of the legs. All right, we're gonna make our way into Child's. Making a comfortable transition. I think everybody has done yoga before, but usually we roll to one side and then sit our hips back to our heels. And noticing the sensation in our glutes, maybe feeling a little looser, more limber in our hips, and that would be fantastic, right? This is one of the benefits of teaching this kind of class too. We get the benefit of it. Let's get into all fours, and we will keep moving, limbering up our spine, soft bend in the elbows, and we'll do just a couple of these because we will do some more twisting options, but let's actually start with a twist. So we've just had a neutral spine lying down on the floor. Hopefully that kind of reset our spines, and I will show us with my left hand moving so I can face us, which means our right hand fingertips are spread wide. We're pressing into our fingerprints and thumbprint, strong through the right arm, and it's a flowing twist. So we're going to inhale, pressing down through our right hand as we reach up through our left fingertips, and then exhale, drawing our core strong as we thread the needle. And that's our flow. Inhaling up and exhaling down. Inhaling up and exhaling down. We might like to drag the arm along the mat, adding an element of dynamic tension. So even though we are doing a softer, more mobility style class, I still want to have that core strength kicked in to protect the low back as we're flopping around on our tools. And then the next time we're at the top, let's pause, open. I like to pause open to feel more optimistic. And then we'll come back through center, and let's do the other side. I'll show us from the back this time. So our left fingertips are spread, pressing down through our fingerprints and each knuckle. Let's open up. Right fingertips to the sky as we press down through left hand and knee, and let's flow. Exhaling creates more space in our twist. Inhaling creates this open feeling at the top. We again may like to drag the arm along the mat. And then the next time we're at the top, let's pause, open, strong core, reminding ourselves, oh yeah, that's right, I'm not working too hard, but I am still using my core to have some structural integrity in my massage. All right, with our next exhale, we'll bring it in. Option to do a plain old cat and cow or a mobility style cat and cow. So again, I'll turn to face you. You can stay wherever you are. And let's kickstand out one leg. So we can start with the right leg, planting our foot flat to get some stretch for the outside of the foot. Really important for anybody who has issues with fallen arches, really tight through the outside of the foot or pronation. This one can be great. And then we move through our typical cat and cow. So still strong through the upper body. Inhaling into cow, exhaling into cat. We probably know this one if we've ever done yoga before, but essentially we are making our spines the shape of a rainbow and then making our spines the shape of the letter U. We might like our eyebrows to lift up as well as we go through cow, making our spines the shape of the letter U. Sometimes we like to kiss our lips towards the ceiling to help out with that as well. Double checking that our foot is still suction cupped to the mat. It might feel nice even to shift our weight back and forth as we go through this one. And then again, let's pause in this open, optimistic cow back bend. Coming back through a neutral spine, and then we'll make our way to the other side. So I generally shift sides of my mat because I like the stickiness of the mat versus the floor, but it really doesn't matter. Okay, we suction cup the foot flat. Hopefully we feel some stretch through the outside of the leg and ankle. Strong upper body, reminding ourselves, oh yeah, we're not just flip-flopping around, even though it is a more gentle class. Cat and cow. Maybe we inhale to get ready. And then exhale to curl into cat. And depending on how our bones are put together and what kind of work we're all doing in our weeks, this one might be really, really difficult. It's a lot of inner thigh flexibility, but hopefully we work up to it in time. I think it's very revealing as well about the amount of lumbar spine mobility that you have. We really need to untuck the tailbone in order to move into this position. We can't just have a neutral spine in order to execute a cow, right? But if we feel like, oh yeah, we might even want to turn to the side, check ourselves out in the mirror and be like, oh yeah, I can like barely move into this. That's pretty revealing about what's going on with our range of motion in our inner thighs and our pelvis. And that's just information, right? Not good or bad, just information. I had a hockey player who could barely execute this. Well, let's think about it. He played a lot of hockey. Everything that needed to be mobile was really tight. So doing a little bit of this was actually quite beneficial. All right, I hope we're balanced on both sides. We are ready for our tennis balls. We are going to get into our hip flexors. This one can actually be quite tough. So our hip flexor, in case we don't know, is the tiny muscle in the front of the hip that helps us go like this. Sorry, I'm just letting somebody new in. So our hip flexors do hip flexion, meaning to lift the leg up. If we want to test that out, you could stand up as I just did, or we can take our thumbs to the front of our hip crease, do a little lift, the muscle that we feel pop. Oh, that's our hip flexor. It's kind of a funny one to do. It can be tough to get into that spot. So let's try our best. We're going to lie on our stomachs. We're going to lie prone, which even for some of us might be a big mobility exercise. And then let's find that muscle that just popped. So our bone, if we can feel it, and then just below that, and we let our body weight come onto it. For some of us, this will be one of those really like, kind of tight muscles, and other people don't really feel anything. A bigger tool makes it a little bit gentler on this area, so a foam roller, something like that. If we can, we're going to put more body weight on this. So it might be, really painful or not. We might have to sort of roll around to find the right spot, but as much as we can, so it's under my left leg, I'm going to say, hey, left leg, take a nap, relax, go to sleep. I got a little bit of a kickstand out in my right leg to get more body weight on the left side. And gravity is doing the work as much as possible. We might even want to take a little nap here, do a little shift around. And if we're wondering like, okay, how long should I do a single muscle? Probably 2 minutes gives us some benefit. Anything less than a minute, might not notice a difference. And if anyone is feeling this is really painful, we can do the same thing we did with our glutes. Use 2 tennis balls, one under each side. And we could have done actually the same with the glutes. We could use 1 tennis ball under each glute and shift side to side. So if we are feeling really tight, lots of sensation, we can do like a sleeping crocodile. 1 tennis ball under each glute. We might like to internally rotate the legs. So the opposite of ballerina feet, toes turn in. We could do a little shift side to side. So our body weight is now spread over 2 tools. If we like that option of 1 tennis ball, we can do the option of 1 tennis ball. If we're only doing one side, let's switch. And if anyone is doing both sides, we can keep doing both sides. Okay, so I'm going to switch under the right hip. And again, I'm going to tell my right leg, take a nap, don't work so hard, I can handle it. So we do have some work going on in our shoulders. And maybe somebody at home is saying like, okay, I'm not supposed to put body weight on my shoulders. What can I do? So this is where we can maybe get creative with a table, lying over a table with the feet on the floor so there's less weight, or up against a wall would be another way to do it. It's not dignified. Looks a little funky. People might stare at you if you do it at the gym, but you might start a new trend. And again, we may notice one side is looser than the other. Nobody's hips are perfectly symmetrical. You may also notice, if like me, you have two old tennis balls, right? They're not tools I bought from the store. One of them might have a little bit more wear on it. It might be softer, which can actually be quite nice. So if a muscle is really sore or tight, using a softer tennis ball would be a nicer way to go easy on it. And body awareness and compassion, right? I can feel my right leg, I guess because I'm right-handed, right-legged, is trying to do all the work. Just a good reminder, we talk about our samskaras, our patterns in yoga. This is my pattern. The right side wants to do everything. So I can just remind it, take a break. It's the left side's turn. We are going to move into stretching our hip flexors. And that is one format we might like to use for our own personal practice. We could do all the massage first and then all the yoga. For today, I've chosen to do a tool with massage and then stretch that muscle. Work a muscle, stretch a muscle, work a muscle, stretch a muscle. We're going to move into a kneeling lunge. So we may like to pause for a moment in child's or downward facing dog to check in, shake out some fidgets. Again, a breath in through the nose and out through the mouth may feel great. And let's come into a flowing lunge. So for me, I usually take my right foot forward between my hands into a kneeling lunge. We have our options for blocks to help us out. And we're going to ease into our hip stretch. So we can walk our blocks with us. This may make life easier. We can have hands down. But the idea is that we're coming into a stretch for the muscle that we just worked and coming out of it. This is what I think of like our oil can, the Tin Woodsman. We're oiling up our hip. Now, there was the question again for to do this in a seated class. We can do sort of sit on the corner of the chair and let the legs hang off so that one leg can dip down. Or actually, most of my populations don't like to put weight on the knee. We can do a hip flexor moving with the weight off the knee. So yogi's choice. My personal preference, I love kneeling lunges. I could do kneeling lunges for an hour every day. You may prefer a variation standing or on a chair. As long as we're bringing movement into this hip flexor area, the front of the hip, we're in good shape. All right, we're gonna switch sides. So if we are still down on the mat, stepping back through down dog or child's. Again, a reminder for our core strength. If we're standing, switching feet, a reminder for our balance. And then we're flowing in and out. Flowing into our kneeling lunge, loosening up, flowing out, giving it a break. Some of us may like to spend a lot of time in that kneeling lunge. Some of us may like to spend more time in our half split or hamstring stretch. We can point, we can flex, whatever we like as we go. And often I'll say to my students, you know, if one side feels tighter, feel free to go back to the tight side, do a few more reps there. But then I'm cueing them, let's start to wrap it up. So whichever hip we're on, we'll start to wrap it up, and then we're going to meet back in child's or downward facing dog. And we'll start to make our way up to a standing position. Again, some of us may like to move through down dog. We may like to hop forward. We may like to walk forward, hang out in our forward fold. Option to give the head a gentle shake. We'll come all the way up to standing. When we get there, maybe resetting, checking back in with our bodies. No rush to be the first to stand. No problem if we're the last. It's all good. We're here. We'll arrive eventually. Okay, we'll bring hands to heart whenever we get there. And we'll all turn to face the long edge for our sun pose. And actually should warn us, if we did want to use a strap we can, we'll do a mobility variation of sun. And usually I say, let's just hang out with it around our necks for a moment. We'll warm up our legs first. Let's inhale up and out, claiming our space in a 5-pointed star, and then exhale nice and gentle through our arms as we go through moon pose. So if we're familiar with YogaFit, we know we usually start with our sun and moon flow, sliding straight up and down, or option to hinge forward. For sun flow, sunflowers, gathering our sunflowers at the bottom of our pose, shifting our hips back, but maybe feeling it differently today because we rolled out our glutes. We did that inner thigh variation of cat and cow, so maybe bringing new light to our sun and moon. Sun and moon flowers. All right, let's all reach to the top. Feeling like the star on the top of the Christmas tree, bright and shiny. And if we do have a strap, we'll go ahead and hold it. And we'll do some of these, often weightlifters do this with a dowel. So we'll do some with a strap. If we have a very long strap at home, we don't want it to be flapping around and hitting us in the face. So we can fold it in half. I've got the strap with the loops so that you can put your fingers through it instead of gripping it, if that's our choice. All right, here we go. Let's inhale up and out. Exhaling, maybe we're bending elbows, bringing the strap in behind the head, and inhaling up. Some of us might like to do a bigger motion, and some of us may like to keep the arms straight. All right, so lots of options here. We could be doing just a little elevator lift and lower, or we could really be going for it, right? So if I mention the fact that I have a lot of clients whose breast cancer is in remission, we're working more a smaller range of motion, maybe going more slowly, maybe working towards symmetry is one of our things. So there is some, adaptability with this. We can make it work. Okay, last one here. Let's all reach to the top. Maybe it feels good. Oh, just take a little stretch, side to side. And then we'll release our strap. We may like to hang on to it. We will do our feet and our balance pose, and we'll come into a variation of dancers that I like to call flamingo pose. So let's just test our balance, okay? Pick our best foot, whatever our best foot is. We've probably all done tree before. So we know we can hold a chair, a wall, a friend, whatever it may be. We can have our toes down, but let's feel into it today. How's our balance? Just noticing it's only information. It's not good or bad. It's what we find. Other side. Let's test our balance. See how we're feeling. When I do this with my spin classes, often there's a lot of tightness in the feet. We roll the feet out at the end of class and they're pretty happy. And it helps take up more of a whole hour for participants that maybe find a whole hour of spin to be a lot, or teachers who find a whole hour of spin to be a lot. And let's grab one tennis ball. So we tested our balance. We sort of have a feeling for how we're doing today. Keep in mind, any issues with feet and balance, yeah, we do want to hold on to a proper wall, not just a room divider like this. And let's start with whichever foot feels more comfortable, feels like a more natural step. We want to feel confident about our balance and what we're working. So I think I'm working on this foot today. So we're going to take the tennis ball. Remember, we're kind of avoiding our joints, right? So the ball of the big toe, just a little further back than that, into the front of the arch, the squishy point of our arch. We're gonna wait, we're gonna press and hold, okay? So we put our body weight and we wait. I think it's a good exercise for patience because we probably wanna really get in there. We're just gonna wait. We're not building any friction, we're just waiting. Let's put the tennis ball a little further back, use our body weight and wait. Notice if we're gripping with the foot we're working on. We can put more body weight on our back foot. Okay, let's put it a little further back, closer to the heel. It's probably our last one that we'll do. if the foot feels really tight, and everyone's body is different, right? We might just have to keep doing this. It might be so sore and tender, or maybe it's feeling better to do a nice roll. Seeking out those places of tension and tightness. And I should say too, when I start introducing tennis ball stuff to my classes, I usually start here. Just for today, let's try a tennis ball exercise in tree pose. And that's the only thing I introduce. People are pretty comfortable with it because we're standing. It's easier for them to see me. We can practice all the different techniques on the underside of the foot. It's a nice sort of easy intro. And then over time, I build it up. Some people, just for the feet, not for any other part of the body, really like to press more. Like, again, I'm letting my body weight do it. I'm not using the muscles of the leg I'm massaging. I'm giving up on that. I'm just like flopping into it. Sometimes people really like to pump. But again, we're not overdoing it. If there's any pain, we're avoiding it. The non-tennis ball tools are really nice to get into the heel. It's super tricky to get into the heel with a tennis ball, but I know it's a common place that people want to work on, so I will give you that little tidbit. It's tough with a tennis ball. You can go against a wall so the ball doesn't roll away, or get a rolling pin. Go into your kitchen, stop baking your Christmas cookies for a minute, get your rolling pin. Let's move on to the other side, but before we do, again, a fun exercise in body awareness. See how different one foot feels from the other just standing. So we're in a strong mountain pose. We can check in with breath and core again. We're not just flopping around, not just focused on our feet. Probably they start to feel different, right? Let's do the other side. Okay, we're gonna wait and release. Putting the tennis ball just in back of the ball of the big toe under the arch, right? So that's our big muscle on the underside of the foot. We can have the heel actually touching if that's better for stability. It can be loose, dynamic tension, right? Tall spine, loose body. Let's find a new spot. Let our body weight sink in. We can start a slow roll. If we feel a knot in the underside of the foot, we don't think about that, right? Like, oh, I guess I have knots in all my muscles. We think about having knots in our back, but yeah, you can get a knot in your foot too. I would say that's a good opportunity for the press and release. Press and release. If anybody has taken the Tai Chi Fit or does the Yo Chi, this is sort of a Tai Chi stance. So yeah, tennis balls would be a nice thing to integrate in. Our Tai Chi classes are generally popular for an older population who can do a lot of foot care, can do a lot of benefit for that population. That's another longevity strategy. Good foot care, really important for a long life. It gets harder to reach down there, but we do our best, right? If we're feeling good, we can start to roll it out. What does the muscle start to feel like? Instead of feeling maybe like chunky peanut butter, it feels like smooth peanut butter. Somebody once told me, I was getting a massage, and the massage therapist says, your neck feels like a bag of old potatoes. So we might feel that bag of old potato sensation, but we want to make mashed potatoes. We want to smooth it out. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot, that kind of pumping thing sometimes people feel is nice. But again, let's be aware. I can have a relaxed foot while I do this if we notice that our toes are clenching or the working leg is working. I guess it's the resting leg, the massage leg. We don't want it to work. All right, kind of fun. If our ankles allow, we can stretch our foot in the opposite way or point and flex. Wiggle the toes. Some people like me, maybe you can hear lots of joints are cracking in my feet and ankles. That is, if you join me for Ayurveda, maybe we'll learn more about Vata and constantly cracking joints. Okay, our feet should feel pretty good. And now if we go to test out our balance, it's like this fun magic trick. I don't want to say anything, but usually much less effort, much better balance. Let's do our flamingo pose. Again, I'm going to say pick our good leg. So I'm going to call it our grounded leg and our lifted leg, and I'll start facing you like this so you can see what I'm doing. We might want to hold on to something on the same side as the grounded leg. And our lifted leg, we're going to do a hamstring curl. So we're loosening up through our quad and our hip flexor. And technically, I know flamingos don't really do this, but whatever. We're channeling our inner flamingo. Bright, colorful, tall and proud. Depending on how tight we are, we can do this one for quite some time, but for today, I hope we're loosened up. We're gonna leave this in our hamstring, and we're gonna loosen our arm up, around, and back. So big arm circles. And then our option is to move into a variation of dancers or a quad stretch. So yeah, we could use our strap around our ankle if we can't grab it. And if anybody at home looks like, you know, a professional gymnast, go for it. Otherwise, we are open through our heart center, tall posture, long quadriceps. Maybe we even want to say something like that in our own mind. My quadriceps are lengthening. My hips feel mobilized, and that generally helps us loosen up a little bit. All right. Find a good moment, right? We want to train success. So if we fall out, we don't want to tell ourselves, oh, that's good. Whenever I give up, I'm done. If we fall out, we reset. We say, yes, I'm successful. And then we enter and exit with control. Here we go. Our other side. So we got our grounded leg, strong and sturdy. Maybe we're holding onto something. Same hand as grounded leg usually. And like a beautiful flamingo, we're going to use that oil can in our hamstring, in our knee joint. Generally, our second side, our body naturally does our good side first. So our second side might be a little bit more tricky, but actually I heard neurologically, we should do our good side first because it teaches our, you know, less confident side how to do it. Sort of lays the blueprint for the second side. I don't know. Okay, we lift and hold. Hopefully we're feeling limber through our hamstrings and quads. This would be a good one, yeah, to roll out our hamstrings before doing this one. If we had more time, I guess we could have rolled around on the tennis ball on the floor, rolling out our hams. But for today, I picked my most common and easiest to do spots. Hamstrings are really tough to get into. Hamstrings are a good one to get into, actually, I should say, for the seated class. We just sit and hold. Finding our own beautiful, wonderful, perfect expression of flamingo or dancers. And yeah, with a lot of my populations, this is how we do dancers pose. We could add a chest expansion, anyone. Often my knee replacement people are much happier doing this or a variation like this. Right? We can all find success and mobility, even if we're not turning ourselves into silly putty pretzels. We release with control when we're ready. Might feel nice to shake it out. How we doing? Okay, we're coming up to that 1 hour mark. Let's do one more here. If we would like our strap, we can. If we want to interlace in behind, we can. We'll take our feet wide once more, turning to face the long edge of the mat for a wide-legged forward fold. And I'll do a couple of different variations to keep our shoulders maybe a little happier. We can start with our strap. Fun fact, when we interlace in behind, we actually shorten the muscle of the chest, whereas if we can keep our palms facing forward, that muscle is still lengthened. So this is why we don't say beginner or advanced poses. It's just different angles and shapes of the body. We can press down, long neck, strong shoulder blades. We can press the hands away from one another if we have the strap. If fingers are interlaced, we can pull the hands away from one another, but they'll stay together obviously because they're interlaced. And we can take this down halfway, a little bit more strength, more core control. We might like to take it down all the way. So this is our last standing pose. We're going to use this to take us all the way down to the floor. So we can keep our strap, or our other option actually is to do a wide-legged downward dog. So sometimes the mobility in the shoulders is not so happy in downward dog, but we have very little body weight on our hands for our downward dog. So this can be a nice option. We might like also, yeah, to do a little freedom of movement side to side, doing a side lunge. And the same pointers we would do for any pose or technique or even the massage balls, we're avoiding pain.
not moving to the point of pain. And keeping some of our strong alignment, some core strength, spreading our toes, spreading our fingers. And then when we're ready, we'll make our way into a, if we like, regular downward facing dog. So our hands back to the top of the mat, stepping down to down dog. And if we're happier in child's or seated or figure four, that's fine too. And I believe I promised us a technique for our traps. So we will make our way all the way down to lie on our backs. While we're up, I want to show us so we can see. So with my participants, I'll often stand up to demonstrate this, or for us today, I'll show you before we get there. The tennis balls are going to go, you know that spot that's like so tight in here where our necks meet our upper back? We're going to put the tennis ball right there when we lie on our backs. This one works really nicely against a wall as well. Can sometimes be easier to control. All right, let's go ahead all the way down to our backs. And I'll show you how I usually do this. So we can start as we did with our glutes. One tennis ball under one side, but you'll probably notice it's kind of awkward. It starts to tip you. So generally I start instead, we do a little crunch, put the tennis balls, and this is usually how I say to my students, instead of saying on our upper traps, put the tennis ball where neck meets back. Upper shoulder sort of area. It can be kind of awkward. Sometimes already it feels nice, but then we lift into bridge and we get a whole lot more pressure there. So yeah, it does require a certain level of fitness to kind of get them in there, figure it out, and then lift up into bridge and keep the body weight there. But here is the magic, especially if you have the two balls connected, we can start to roll down the back. And if the two balls are not connected, they may start to go all sorts of different directions. That's okay. We can shimmy back onto our mats and reset the balls and reset that slide. So again, we do a little crunch to get them positioned. We can just leave it here. We can put a bit more body weight on the tennis balls, or we can start to slide. And yeah, we might have to reposition them. So if you are quite fine-boned, if you're guessing, oh yeah, I probably have small bones in my spine, the tennis balls go closer together. And if you're thinking, no, I'm not that fine-boned, then probably the tennis balls go a little bit wider, right? Because we want to avoid the spine, but get into the muscle. How are we doing? Perfect. Okay, let's see if we can do a couple more of those. We could also, instead of rolling, lift and hold and do a little slice side to side or a little slice up and down. So I think some of my participants are kind of embarrassed about losing the tennis ball. Like, oh no, it just flew across the room. So they're a bit happier with a smaller movement. So we could even just do a little crunch. Maybe we're holding the back of the head or using a block underneath the back of the head, and then a small slicing movement up and down, letting our bodies be our guide. So partway down my back, I've got like a knot in my right rhomboid. I can stay here. And we can't take it too seriously, right? Like, we do look funny. I think that's very helpful to start with that. Or maybe you want to teach this and take it very seriously, and that would be really funny as well, taking it too seriously. And if none of this neck and trap thing is working for you, the other thing we can do is take it under the ear, sort of where the neck muscle meets the skull, where right at the occiput, the base of the skull. And again, just let the body weight sink in. It can be a bit nicer in Shavasana. So the weight of our head is resting into the ball just behind the ear and behind and under the ear. And some people don't like that because if they do go limp, the ball again just like flies out. Okay, and again, this is what I would be saying to my students, and I will say it to each and every one of you. Finish up what we're working on. If something feels really good, fantastic, spending maybe another minute here, being aware of how that's working, scanning the body, letting go of any unnecessary tension. You know, if we're scrunching the toes or anything weird is happening in the body, seeing if we can release that. And maybe somebody out there is having creative ideas for how to modify these techniques for your own individual body or your different classes that you're teaching. I encourage you to go with that. If there's any concern over safety or technique, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help in that way. But there is a lot of creativity that can happen in this. Fortunately or unfortunately, we're going to put the tennis balls off to the side. Again, I welcome everyone to follow their own natural impulse. Might feel nice to do knees to chest or a long stretch, whatever feels good. And I will give us, I think, just one more concept here to work with, and then we'll do our final relaxation. So we'll do just a flowing sort of twist on a yin pose. Sometimes this is called Yin-Yasa. It's not a strict yin technique. If we're familiar with yin, that's not what we're about to do. Let's go ahead and take a figure 4 position. So I'll take my right over my left in a figure 4. And I'm going to windshield wipe the legs side to side. For more stability, maybe we feel good with our hands on our core. Maybe with our arms out to T, palms down to feel stable. Maybe we want to feel more free and open. Our arms are kind of up in a Y position. But this is why I call it Yin-Yasa. We're using that oil can kind of technique. So we're loosening up the range of motion before fully moving into it. So if we have our right on top of our left, maybe what's happening as we're going is the pelvis is actually shifting side to side, which can be good. So we might actually even want a little bit more of that, like we do in our typical YogaFit classes. Right leg on top, shift the hips a little bit to the right. And if we're finally ready to move into a variation of twisted roots or twisted figure 4, we can let the right foot come to drop all the way. We can hold on to it with our left hand. We might like to focus on our breathing, our free hand on belly or ribs. Or again, we might like to feel more free, reaching the arm up overhead. Let's see if we can do a slow inhale and a long exhale. So hopefully by the end of this class, we've done a lot of work to limber up, range of motion in all directions, and massage our bodies. So maybe we're feeling looser in this variation of figure 4. It's often a bit more ambitious, a variation of figure 4. We could be doing a gentle twist instead with the knees stacked as another option. And our traditional yin poses we're holding for at least 1 to 2 minutes, something like that. Some people will say 8 minutes. Depends on the practice or the person. And for today, let's go ahead and move to the other side. So again, it can be a nice variation for participants who aren't comfortable in stillness, but can benefit from holding a pose for a long time. Technically, we're in figure 4 the whole time. We're loosening up our hips as we windshield wipe side to side. But it gives the mind something to do if the body can remain somewhat active. Again, these rhythmic movements, circling movements, swaying movements are great to tap into our parasympathetic, rest and digest. Maybe we're matching breath to movement, depending on how we're moving. And if we are ready, we could move into our twisted figure 4. So right hand holding on to the outside of the ankle of the left leg. Our left hand is now free, maybe placed on belly or ribs for breath awareness, out to the side for stability, or up overhead might give more of a lifted sense of freedom. We could be using a 4-8 breath here, inhaling for a count of 4, exhaling for a count of 8. Scanning head to toe, seeing if there's anywhere in the body that we're working where gravity could be doing the work instead. So our right hand is working, holding on to our ankle. Our diaphragm is working to breathe, but maybe there's somewhere that gravity could do a little bit more on our part. We can give up some of the work and let gravity do it instead. When it feels like this side matches the first side, as much as it ever will, we can make our way into, maybe there's a final pose that one of us would like to do out there. Feel free to do it. Again, this exercise of listening to our bodies and responding appropriately. Maybe we feel like another twist, a bridge pose, whatever that may be. And let's come into a final resting position. For today, I'm feeling more comfortable with my knees bent. We may feel more comfortable in a traditional relaxation pose with our feet and hands wider than the mat, palms turning up. Or maybe we feel a little bit more restful and cozier with the knees bent and knocking into one another. Yogi's choice. And let's come back into our body awareness. So if you were finishing up doing just one more final pose, don't let me rush you, but when we're ready to tune in, let's go for it. We'll come back to center. Maybe we like our 4-8 breath or a big sigh. And let's notice our relationship with gravity once more. See if we can seek out in our minds, sensing all the areas where the body is resting down on the mat. Focusing our attention on all the areas where the body is pressing down. On our next inhale, just feeling full. And then on our exhale, letting these parts of the body press more heavily into the mat. Let's see if we can work in opposites to feel balanced. Inhaling, feeling light and lifted. Exhaling, feeling heavy, resting down. Breathing at our own perfect pace, inhaling lightness and exhaling heaviness. Maybe we're inhaling a feeling of optimism and exhaling a feeling of support. We could bring awareness to face and hands again, seeing if they can be relaxed. At this point, belly can be soft. And once more, in a gesture of compassion, but also connection, let's bring hands to cross heart center, lying down. taking a moment to thank yourself. We can all thank ourselves for carving out this time, for dedicating time to the well-being of our bodies. It can be tough to make this time, but also tough to get the mindset of rest and care and not always running at full tilt. So thank you to everyone today for bringing your energy. Thank you to everyone watching the recording for signing up. From my light to yours, namaste. Thank you for being here.